Deborah Anderson, the Black Woman Animator, come back to you with another video, and this video is about the representation of black characters in video games. And I have some guests with me. I have Chris and Tim, and so I'm gonna have them do little mini introductions first, and then we can get into our discussion.
So I'm Chris Douglas. Currently I'm a learning specialist for Microsoft, but I used to be a professional gamer, so it gives me a little bit of expertise in the area. And I've just been playing games. I'm 37 now, so I've been playing games for 30 years or so. So representation in games are always important to me, so I'm happy to be here to talk about that.
Yes, my name is Timothy Miller. I'm a software tester. Basically, I'm just testing video games right now, so that gives me my expertise on this. I have a degree in political science pre-law, so that helps. Can probably break down a little bit of this politics for y'all in this gaming if anybody's interested, but you know, there we go.
So first we're going to start off with the evolution of black characters in video games. So I'm going to be more of a facilitator because I don't play video games like that, but we're going to have this back and forth. So let's get started.
So we were talking about this like earlier off camera, but the breakdown and like the evolution of characters in games kind of started once you got into the 32-bit era. In the very beginning, you know, with sprites, it was 8-bit, 16-bit. You didn't really have a lot of black characters. It was just a character, whoever the character wanted to be. There wasn't thought about representation. And at that time, in the late 80s, early 90s, nobody thought about representation as a whole anyway. So once you got into like 3D, you know, making the games, PlayStation 1, Sega Saturn, you know, and then moving forward to Xbox and things like that started to evolve. That's when you started to see characters in it. But it was more of a representation of like blaxploitation characters, or you know, characters that they would see and not understand from a cultural, you know, represented state. So you get into a game and like Tim was talking about Final Fantasy, you got Barrett and he acts like Mr. T. And in those games, the Japanese RPGs, I'll let him go into detail with that. And then other games, like your character was like a villain, or it was a thug, you know, a criminal, something to that effect. It played into some level of stereotype in the games. And as time is still going on, we've evolved a little bit, but not enough to where we can really say something about representation in it. You know, right now, the first thing they're going to do with a character, a black character, they're going to put them in a game and go, yo, put dreads on that character. You know, give them that boosty high ball fade. You know, that's it. That's all they're really going to do. So it goes into everything, all parts of it. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit more in depthly when we talk about the animation principles in it. Maybe you give some breakdown of your experience.
Yeah, my experience is mainly in JRPGs when it comes to black characters, and the two games in particular that I think of are Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy 13, with Barrett from 7 and Saz from 13, as both were just stereotypical characters that, to my understanding, a good friend of mine, Brandon, who I talk to on a regular basis, we always discussed it and we talked about it. And to my understanding was that the Japanese understood these characters to be, you know, just with the films they had seen. So they knew of Mr. T. They knew of characters, you know, loud. Blacks were pretending to be loud. You know, we were ignorant, a lot of cursing. So Barrett, in that case, it's basically a text RPG. There was no voice acting in Final Fantasy VII. So literally every 2 lines of text from Barrett was a curse word that were just blinked out with a whole bunch of letters. And he continued, and he never really grew in the game. So he always continued to be that ignorant character from beginning to the end. And I would like to see what changes they will make to him in the remake, but I somehow highly doubt that it'll change too much, because that's a whole nother issue. But on to 13, for this perspective, Saz had more of a buddy cop, Eddie Murphy type feel. He was always meant to drop jokes, lighten up the area, and that's what black characters, that's what we would typically do in a lot of movies that had white protagonists or whatever else it was. The black character was meant to be comic relief. So they used them again as comic relief, and we've still yet to evolve in the Japanese RPGs, or at least the ones I've played, because I can't really think of too many games with black characters in Japanese RPGs. And we can go back to more American games and more, games like Grand Theft Auto, which my friend Chris is more of an expert on, so we can switch to.
Yeah. Well, real quick point about Final Fantasy VII too. So Final Fantasy VII is the remake is coming out, right?
Yes.
Super excited about that.
Yes.
The remake. But even in that, like Barrett's voice, he now has a voice, but to keep the game authentic,
he sounds like Mr. T.
He sounds like Mr. T. He sounds like this an abrasive, aggressive black man. You know how they want everybody to just be an angry black man and everything that we do in that. So it's the same thing, like, but they want to keep it, as close to the original as possible. But that was a huge mishap that they had in the first game. And it's not something they're going to correct. And no one that we've seen across blogs or anything else are talking about that. Mm-hmm. So you can bring it up, but it's just going to get, overran. No, they're going to overlook it. No one really cares. They care more about the active time and, battle system and the combat than they care about representation of a character in the game.
The only complaint I've seen about Bear is that his skin was a little bit lighter than it used to be. And I'm like, well, you just went from blocks to almost photorealistic graphics. So, I mean, they had to make some kind of change, but if that's what your concern is and not the fact that he's just an angry black man with a gun on, that seems to be more the issue. But I mean, I mean, if he had a gun on, man, you got to be mad about something. Something bad had to happen, and that's...
Well, even in that, so, like Grand Theft Auto, we've been represented very stereotypically in Grand Theft Auto. But the problem is that, for the most part, it's fairly organic for the setting that it's in. Mm-hmm. So if they're trying to portray, the characters in Grand Theft Auto 5 from like South Central. The people who did the voice acting for the characters are like, well, I got my inspiration from this from, Dub C and Ice Cube, MC Ren, and other people that I knew growing up. And both of those characters said that, and then, the other characters like, well, I got a lot of my inspiration from like Gucci Mane, original Gucci Mane, not, new and improved woke Gucci Mane, you know what I'm saying? So you have, everybody's like, they're still artists. So the people who are voice actors are still going to be artists. Mm-hmm. So they're still going to try and bring art to life in some way, in some form or fashion. I think that the two guys that they got in there to do those characters, they still represented, the essence of that character probably as genuinely as organically as possible because of that instance. And it's like, it's terrible, but it's a necessary evil. But at least I know that I'm getting something that's real, because I know cats, from around the way that may act like that or may talk like that in the game, and it's a lot more realistic. It's a lot more common. Some of the stuff you can tell is scripted. Some of the stuff you can tell is ad-lib. The ad-lib stuff is always the best.
Right.
It always works the best. So we need to get to a point where we can have characters that are diverse and inclusive, and they can be represented like in our hair and everything else. So that's probably like a good segue into like talking about animation in those games that represent us.
Right before we go to that storyline in NBA 2K, the Spike Lee joint with the basketball player and his best friend, who I assume was black. I guess it didn't matter what color you created the main character, but the side character always black, and they treated him as a stereotypical hanger-on from your childhood. It was a friend you always tried to keep with you, always tried to lift him up, but he kept getting in trouble, kept getting until it eventually caught up with him and unfortunately killed him. And it shows your character trying to work through it. Granted, it had nothing to do with a basketball game, and I have no idea how any of that affected your shooting in the game, but it was there. And it was a story, it was an interesting story to tell. Basically, he got game, the sequel. So it was an interesting story to tell from Spike Lee, but in terms of how it fit into a basketball game, I have no idea how that works.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where they just try to give more to a game than what it is. Like 2K is starting to get much more. They're more focused on the theatrics that happen around basketball than basketball, because that's what's hot in the media right now. In the media, you can turn on First Take or you can turn on NBA TV or NBA Twitter, and everybody's talking about Taco Tuesday and LeBron and how he's misappropriating that, and then LeBron need to move out the way and he need to allow these young kids to play on the team, and then turn around and be like, we lost in the USA because Bron didn't want to get out there and play. So it's like, that's the type of thing that you'll have.
Is 2K the one that got Spice Adams in it? Cream Biggums.
No, he's in live.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's how they're taking like Instagram celebrities and
Right.
kind of implementing
Right.
them into the game
Right.
to kind of, I don't know, make it more fun and it is representative and creating diverse characters that these people created.
Right.
And I do want to go back to what you were saying about the Japanese probably not doing better in a remake, because when I lived in South Korea, something that I experienced was, well, I didn't personally experience, but I heard about people where they would come up to them and be like, hey, yo, my N-word and all this stuff, and they're like, whoa, like, and that's because all of the media, whether it's through the songs or the TV shows or movies, is how we're speaking, and that's all they have to go from.
Right.
And we're just like coming to their country more. And so I remember when I worked at the animation company my second year, I had a coworker who is American, but he's like half Korean, half Puerto Rican, and he grew up in a black neighborhood. And you know, in some neighborhoods, people who are not black use the N-word.
Right.
And so sometimes we would all go to lunch or dinner, and he would be in the elevator, and he would be like rapping some song and using the N-word. I'm like, bro, can you like stop using the N-word? And I never really told him why I wanted him to stop, but the actual reason I wanted him to stop was because they think it's synonymous with black.
Right.
And so I don't want my Korean from Korea coworkers to hear that and think it's acceptable to call me that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just would rather you just rap that song at your house, because I ain't gonna even go to the policing of him using the N-word, but I just don't want you to say that around
Right.
these people, so they think, oh, it's coming from an American or a Korean person, however they want to view him at that point in time, and then it's okay. So now I can say that to Deborah, like, no, that is not a synonym.
Right.
That is a slur that we took back, so to speak,
Right.
but y'all can't say it.
Even like, so the breakdown of it is like, you know, how they try to take the word from is like Negus means
Mhm.
king, so a lot of times that's where it's coming from.
Mhm.
And a lot of people are trying to educate people about, they didn't probably understand our dialect when we're telling it to each other, so that's why
Right.
they started trying to like weaponize that word towards us. So it definitely, it's hard. It's something to think about on a regular, but you got to think about how many of the younger kids that'll let they homies, they'll give them a pass,
Mhm.
you know, because you know, look, my son, little Chris, is 14, you know, and there's not any instances that I've seen where he would be like, yeah, well, this person said this, and you know, it kind of made me uncomfortable. But for the most part, like, all of them are all, you know, of the same race that they're hanging together, and they have their friends that they have, you know, they'll still intermingle with them from basketball or whatever.
Mhm.
But I don't think that they really, you know, they rock with each other like that. But the cultural thing and how culture has changed so much for the younger generation that's in it. Like,
Yeah.
everything is black culture. Everything.
Mhm.
So the way that they dress, everything's Supreme and Yeezys and Jordans or whatever, and it's the norm. Like, that's what fashion is now. It's whatever black culture was hot. That's the new culture. That's the new norm.
Mhm.
And so it's crazy for me to sit back and see all those things. It's kind of like NBA 2K comes out, Allen Iverson's on the cover, you know, and then they had this huge blow up at the time because it's like, well, why y'all putting this dude on the cover, and he got braids and he got diamond earrings, and he has the friends that are hanging with him, you know, that's from the hood or whatever, and he's trying to put out a rap album, and he got all these tattoos and everything, and they were airbrushing his tattoos off of him on like the programs for the games, and 2K caught a lot of flack for having an athlete like that they chose to put on there.
Mhm.
But they put him on there because he was the representation of basketball at that time.
Right.
He was representative of what basketball was in that era. He single-handedly changed the NBA dress code. Right? So when that's just how there's a lot of people, like, they'll see that person and then they try to, you know, like, that's what's hot, so put that in as your black character. That's what everybody's doing, you know, like Beyonce got 133 million followers on Instagram, so let's make her and then put her in the Lion King, and not say that that's a terrible idea, you know, to put something like that or to have all of this black excellence around something that's coming from the motherland anyway, but don't do it in a targeted way. And I think that there's some mixes where you can tell things that were like the brainchild of like maybe Jay-Z and Kendrick and Beyonce and a lot of the other black characters that are represented in that game or in that movie, and then there are a lot of other things that are happening in the same instance where you're having people who are targeting this demographic. I want your user base. You're the influencer. I want your whole base. Creamy Bigums, you spicy. You doing what you blowing up. Let's put you in live and see if that can get us, some more users there.
It's always about intent, and it's hard to understand what a single person's intent is unless you know that person or unless you've been in that situation. You'll never understand what that person's intent is. I know what my intentions are whenever I do anything. Doesn't matter what it is. Like my intention for this is to give information, not to mention make myself famous. But no, that's not my intention. But you have to know what that person's intention is, and it's hard because when it comes to money, it's always going to be money is the bottom line. It doesn't matter what color you are, it doesn't matter what religion, none of that matters. At the end of the day, to Wall Street, they want money. Companies want to make money. If you don't have enough money, you're not doing anything. America's built on capitalism. We need money. It's pointless to do anything that will not get you any kind of money. And it's unfortunate that we look at it like that, but we're just trying to survive. And that's the sad part about it. It's not about enjoying, especially if people lower down. It's not about enjoying life. It's just about surviving. You could even apply that to a rich person. They're trying to survive. They're trying to make sure they constantly have enough money so they can continue to live in their big house. They can continue to drive their fancy cars.
And even with the intention piece, no matter whether it's coming from a person of color or a white person, you can tell authenticity. So there could be good intentions coming from the majority, but it's still not authentic. And that's that surface level you were talking about how we're going to throw Beyonce in this movie, we're going to throw this person in this game, but you're not really addressing the nuances of how you need to address black characters in a video game. You're just throwing it in there and like, oh, let's get this. And you can talk about like the Tiger Woods thing.
Yeah, so like that was a perfect segue into what we were talking about earlier. The intentions have to be there. Everybody has a product to sell, bottom line. No one, whether if it's a black company, I'm a black artist, it doesn't matter. I still have a product to sell. So at the end of the day, yes, that's what you're going for. The problem lies when you have other executives that are in there, and you take the Tiger Woods thing for instance. Madden is really big. Madden's played in almost probably the predominant black households. I know every like Thanksgiving and holiday, we used to sit up in there, and me and all my uncles and all of the children, like not even my son and his nephew or his cousins and my nephew and they all sit down and we all Madden tournaments, 2K tournaments or whatever. Everybody plays those sports games together. So it's a huge thing. It's almost, it's part of the culture, and in barbershops, whatever, they got Madden somewhere. So then executives thought it was a good idea so we can get the Madden user base, who is the urban youth, to play Tiger Woods by putting grills in the game as a creative character. So I'm gonna be a golfer with a grill and a diamond club because I want to make sure that these black youth, that's what they want. The black youth, they want to have grills and they want to have chains swinging and spinners on their golf cart and diamond club. Like that's disrespectful, But that's how you can take that, and that's something that's targeted to this demographic, and that's what it is. And to flip back to something that Beyonce did is you walk into a room in a meeting and you sit down with a group of executives and you're like, I'm not going to actually sign this deal because how can y'all make a product for me and represent me when half of this room don't look like me? So that's where we have to get to, and that's how we have to have that courage and also like responsibility to do those things and not be afraid to leave money on the table when it comes to that. Everybody's going to say, you're a damn fool for leaving that money on the table. But you have to get to a point where your children understand who they are, the power that they have, and what their responsibility is as black people in America when all parts of entertainment come from us. Music, clothes, food, whatever.
And unless you're a special type of person, it's probably not going to be the first person in the room that's going to do that. I don't know, because what you were saying earlier about people just wanting that money, like, oh, I'm going to wait.
You don't have enough power yet, so I need enough money. Money is power. That's the unfortunate part, but it's true. Money is power. So until I get enough of it, that's when I'll take a stand. But you get to a point where I'm going to do everything I can to get in the house, but once I get in that house, completely forgot why I got came there.
Right.
I'm mingling with everybody. I have no intention of trying to fix anything because everything's so good to me. I mean, I've been working in the field picking cotton my entire life, and they finally tell me I can come inside and be the cook. Why am I going to do anything to get put back out there in the field, especially as hot as it is down here in the south?
Right.
So why would you want to go back to the field?
Right.
So you're going to do whatever you can to stay inside without thinking about the bigger picture and concerns for other people. Because, I mean, it's unfortunate, but we're all selfish in nature. It's just human nature to be selfish. And we share because it's part of our survival. By sharing with them, we're hoping that somebody else will share back with us and that it will continue to go on that way. It's just, it's a selfish nature, and it's unfortunate because, I mean, unfortunately, I'm about to say, it goes back to the money again.
Right.
Everything is about money, and there's...
Even like when we think about like the representation of the characters in games. So right now, currently, Apex Legends is really big. It's a battle royale game. It's a really, really big game. There's a huge lineup of diverse characters. I say huge, but it's 10 or 11 characters in the game right now. But it's probably a fair mix of female characters and male characters, black characters, white characters, other race characters, gender neutral characters. And the way that it's done is it's deliberate, but it's not so in your face to where everyone's like, oh man, that's crazy. And the crazy part about how communities work, usually in video games, is that video games is usually ran predominantly by white males, whether it be boys or men. That's what you normally see. If you turn on a stream, you know, you're not gonna say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna watch King Richard stream." You know, and he's a black pro gamer that plays for NRG. But I'm not gonna think about, you know, what I'm saying, I'm gonna go watch Ninja. I'm gonna go watch Shroud. I'm gonna go watch Dr. Disrespect. But you're not gonna think about any of the other, you know, black characters like Moonlight Wolf or whoever it is. There's a ton of black streamers that are out there, you know, but they don't get the same level of notoriety. They could be doing the exact same things. Their stream quality could be better. Their production value could be better. But more people are going to tune into the white stream because that's just what the norm is, right? So it's the same breakdown. That's how it's going into that. So Apex is in an instance where they deliver, you know, gay characters in a very nice, like, nuanced way. It's subtle. It's not over the top. The character makes sense. You know, it's a Samoan male. He's the biggest character in the game, and he's a gay man. And people literally lost their mind, you know, because it's like the biggest character in the game is a Samoan. He's supposed to be, you know, a bad, like the super bad character. So why is it like that? Bangalore is a black female, but she embodies like strength, you know, resilience. And then even with her hair and the design of hair, like she got the Bantu curls in her hair, and it's super dope to me that they did it. And it's not like, oh, well, let's just put the character on there like that. And the craziest thing is like the voice actor one day wore hair like that, and it was like, yo, that's dope. Like that's dope. We should probably like run that if we're gonna do that. So there are different instances and ways where there are developers out there, and Respawn just so happens to be a huge like diverse breakdown of men and women, people of color that are representative, that are putting games in there to represent us in a proper way.
Right.
So when we get to that point, that's where it needs to be. Then that's going to be another piece of it. Is like how is the community going to accept that, right? We may think like, yo, that's super cool, and then the bulk of your community, you know what I'm saying, like I said, which is generally white males or the vocal minority inside of it, is going to get behind their keyboards and they're going to start talking about and putting out, you know, gender-phobic slurs or
Battlefield 1 having a black person on the cover of it, and I didn't quite understand it. I mean, it's they were even making up to the point they were like, well, black people didn't fight in the war then. Yeah, they did. Yeah. It's called history lesson. Take a history lesson.
Right.
And unfortunately, they don't do it. They just, it goes to what we were all talking about earlier off camera, about everybody lives in their own bubble, in their own little world. They don't understand anything that happens outside of their world. They think what happens to them only affects them. It doesn't affect anybody else. It doesn't matter how rich you are, how powerful you are. At the end of the day, we all have a life that ends, and you can show pity or sympathy to somebody even if you're not in their position.
Right.
I, for one, have been able to show sympathy to anybody. I don't care who it is. I can show sympathy to the hardest of drug dealers and show sympathy to the hardest of drug users. I can feel sympathy for the man who steals the CEO that commits a white collar crime to just continue to get more money because he's trying to come up with some way to feed his family. Just like him feel sympathy for this drug dealer who is selling all of these drugs to the youth or whoever else it may be to feed his family. At the end of the day, everybody's situation is different, and if you have to try to look at it from their side, right or wrong, you have to look at it from their side. You have to be able to show some kind of sympathy. Now, some people just do stupid stuff, and you can't sympathize it, you can't rationalize it. Like, some things are just so stupid to that point, but you still have to try. If you always stay on one side of the fence, you'll never understand or be able to appreciate the perspective from the other side.
And then what you were saying earlier, like with the Facebook algorithms and Instagram algorithms, it makes it even harder to get like a balanced thought process. That's why even when I'm on Facebook, I'll scroll past and see some of my friends' stuff, and I'll like it, but I won't like it because I'm like, I don't want that on my timeline. Like, I like that your child is in that picture, but I'm not gonna like it because it's gonna show me more of that, and that's not the content I want to see. So I'm cognizant of that, and I choose to like and share how I want, but not everybody's cognizant of that or thinking of that, and so they're just liking everything they like. And even yesterday when I was on YouTube, and I recently watched like a David So comedy video and some other videos, and now like my whole recommended is like totally different. I'm like, oh, I want what I was watching before. So it's really good at, okay, you're on this now, let's show you this, and I'm like, nah, I just wanted to watch that because somebody I knew from what I would usually watch was on there, not because I'm actually interested in that.
Right. Yeah, so like it's the same thing. So all of those things are going to be targeted, and that's all part of it. Like, it's the Microsoft man in me, but like, yeah, it's not like Google's the devil, but there's a lot of things that Google do that's it's targeted because I want to give somebody the idea is there. Yeah. It's the same thing that you do with, like, say, when we talk about video games and putting a character in the game. The idea is to represent this character in a positive light, or not even in a positive light. Let's put a character in this game that this person looks like. It would resonate with them. Maybe they want to purchase it, and then I can target and market the rest of my portfolio to them. Like, that's what it is for the bulk of what's happening. Google, what they're trying to do with that, or anybody at this point now with their algorithms, they're trying to give you things to be helpful to you. These are the things you're looking for. So let me kill you, kill some of these things out and save you some time, right? And I'm going to go into it and give you targeted ads. So the whole purpose of that is to give you time back. You don't have to sit there and research things for 30 minutes before you buy something. Let's get into that. Let me give you, these things for it and then roll forward so I can ultimately just target this to you. Let me put this black character in this Final Fantasy game so hopefully you'll go out and want to buy more Japanese RPGs when I know that might not be a thing that most black kids are buying. But I want to do that to represent that character in there for you. That's kind of where we are.
I did not buy Final Fantasy 7 because Barry was black. Just so everybody know I didn't.
That's funny. Let's get started talking about, the in-depth stereotypical characteristics of black characters. Chris, what do you want to do?
So we mentioned this like briefly in the very beginning of the video as well. So we talked about like, the Boosie fade or dreads. That's the first two instances where you go to do hair design on a character. From an animation standpoint, it's already very difficult to do hair in video games. So there's even like NVIDIA had a whole thing with this hair technology that they did 2013 with Tomb Raider. It was the first one, and it was like, look at how Laura Croft's hair is flowing and blowing in the wind, and that's an actual setting in the game. You have to have this set of NVIDIA cards to do that. And that's dope. I appreciate that, because it was a woman, and they're putting a lot of thought and effort into what's going on. I want that same level of thought, interest, and care put into a black character and all the different natural hairstyles that we have and that we use, no matter what it is, So it has to be something better than just dreads and fades. Like we gotta have something better than that.
Something that I've noticed as an animation professional, and like my artist Instagram, I follow nothing but people who inspire me, and so I follow some 3D artists that. Okay, so there are black people who can do the black hair, but something that I've noticed is that European white people be knowing how to do our hair. I don't know what's different about them, where like American white people refuse to learn how to do this, but I'll see like Gus Soares, he's like, is he Brazilian or is he, there's some like Portuguese, like Spanish, like from Spain, all these people over there, or maybe in South America, that know, like when I see their black hair, I'm like, can you tell me how you did that so I can do it?
Right.
And I just don't understand what is different about their culture where they actually try.
Right.
And then they do it well.
Right. It's just so it's the same thing with you. Like when you go into something, you know, you talk about, you think about, like, you care about, it's passionate. So you think about, well, how can I be better at my craft? How can I hone in on my skills and my craft? So those handful of people, no matter where they are in the world, they're just, it's good that we have good people.
Yeah.
So they're good people trying to do right by everybody, and they're trying to authentically represent whoever they're drawing, whoever in that character inspired them to be. The biggest thing though is that you cannot have people just out there, and it happens far too often. Just like, yo, I'm gonna throw this black character in there. How we gonna do him? Throw some dreads on him. My day is done. That's it.
Yeah.
That's how it finishes. You know. So, we talked about this earlier. Like I personally feel like there's art in everything. You know. When I was going back to the story I told, somebody inspired me when I was younger, and they told me like, yo, man, there's art in everything that you do. There's art in ball, in the way that you dribble. There's art in sneakers, and the color palette, the way that you dress is art. You're living art. Like video games, music, whatever, it doesn't matter. There's art in everything. So you're gonna have people that's gonna take advantage of that, and they're gonna be predatory towards the product that they have out, because they just want as many people to consume that as possible. And that's an American thing, like capitalism, consumption.
Right.
You know. So and then you're also gonna have other people from different parts of the world where capitalism may not be as prominent. So they're gonna take time to really understand those things, but also love and home and have a passion for their craft.
Right.
And just have an understanding of, and just genuine, like, human nature. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just a human person, like, knowing and having sympathy, empathy, and apathy.
Right.
With hairstyles, especially for black characters in games, they just seem to go, in America at least, we just seem to go what was ever popular. The Kawhi Leonard braids, as we like to call it in Division 2, the perfect set of braids. It's perfectly done, but it's stereotypical. I mean, it's just what's ever popular. Whoever's the most popular black man in America at the time is the hairstyle, the features that will be available in the game.
Right.
Because God forbid we get variety.
Right. Yeah, there's no such thing as variety. I mean, for the long, I forgot. It had to be 2K that first did it. All these blonde streaks in these players' hair. It was just random red streaks here, like 6ix9ine and stuff like that, and that was popular at the time. Now, I personally didn't know anybody with a red streak in their hair, but he was the one who had it. So all of a sudden, it makes it into the game because that's who's popular, and they're like, that's what everybody wants.
Even talking about that, like in 2K, because 2K is notorious for doing this. NBA Live is notorious for doing this. Pretty much not anything with a created character, especially sports games. Sports games have a bigger market for created characters. The problem that I have is they'll give you 100 hairstyles. And of them 100 hairstyles, I got 40 hairstyles for braids, I got 30 for dreads, I got 10 fades, and I got 20 froze. And like, that's it. So it's like, I have 100 hairstyles in the game. But there's 4 hairstyles that's really in the game.
Right.
Yeah. And even if you look at it, it's like fro number 1, fro number 2, fro number 3. You look at them, it's like,
they're getting bigger, or they're getting smaller, or they might have a patch here.
Yeah, some of them might have a patch in it, some of them might have a small part in it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
I've seen an afro with one just piece sticking out with some beads on it. I was like, that's not considered a hairstyle, that's a variation.
Nah, something, same instance. So what NBA Live tried to do to try to be more authentic and be more realistic, and my personal opinion is that NBA Live 18 and NBA Live 19 are better basketball games because that's what they focused on. Even like the street ball aspect of it is still more realistic. It's not and one. They're like just like how you really hooping in the street. Like if I'm gonna go, and go hoop at the park, this is what it's gonna look like.
Right.
So they actually took a bunch of different barbers and they brought them in. It was like, we're gonna actually motion capture the whole haircut. For every haircut that you're gonna do, like I don't care what your style, like this. Be free and be a barber. Like, be a master barber and do your thing. And they went in there and they watched them, like, cut up all the hairstyles. So Live 19 had a better representation of the haircuts and hairstyles. Like, the linings are better and things are different. Even people like me, I got the LeBron line and I'm gonna see, but you can still go into that and see, like, every single part of the hairstyles are more properly represented. So the effort is there and I appreciate that.
Right.
But you still are not giving me the whole thing. Like, you had barbers come in and you let them cut like 5 dudes' hair. Like, all right, cool. We got our 5 styles. That's it. That's representation.
Yeah.
So you're doing good things, but you're not actually going the extra mile. And you're not doing the things that are necessary inside of that. And this is like another segue, so maybe you can talk about this as well. There's far too many instances where us as black creators will get into something and like, oh, I'm a black creator, and that seems to be what's hot, and that seems to be what's popular, but I grew up in the suburbs and I listen to metal or whatever. So you really don't have an understanding of like black hair because that may not have been a thing. That's not a bad thing, not a targeted thing, but then you can't be an expert, on this piece of it.
And that's why, like, with my book that I had came out with, the Black Hair Alphabet, the impetus of me doing that is because I heard a conversation amongst black men about how they just be having 2 haircuts in a video game.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, it was like February. Well, I had thought of it maybe the year before, and then it was like February 1st, and I remembered that I thought about it. I'm like, oh, let me do a daily project. So a hairstyle for each letter of the alphabet. Because initially I wanted to wait till I learned how to do realistic hair. But I was like, let me just use my current skill set. So I did a hairstyle for each letter of the alphabet, just so it could be out there that it's possible, even if it's not. If it's like more of a, if you think about like Finding Nemo, Incredibles, even in that style, if it's not realistic, it's still possible. And then hopefully once I learn how to do realistic hair, I can redo the project and do Afro, Bantu knot, conch, all that stuff realistic, and just show people that, and then might be able to do some consulting. I don't know. But just show people that it's possible. Like, you can do the fades, you can do the linings. Linings is very important. That's like very cultural, especially with the straight edge and all that stuff. Like that's a new part of the culture. And so the intricacies and the nuances, that would be just cool to finally see in a game. Like, oh, y'all doing it.
Yeah, they may even get Kevin Durant's hairstyle in the game.
Oh man, don't do Kevin Durant like that, son. Katie said he ain't wanted no waves, he just wanted a mean jumper, son. That was it. But it goes to show you like where we are. We laugh about it, but it's real. Like, it goes to show you like where we are, and it's something that's very, like, it could be considered small, right? That can be something that's trivial to a lot of people. But if I'm a kid and I sit down and I go to play this game and I go to play, like, ask any young boy, black dude, 13, 14, 12 years old, about 2K, what it is, and ask them about basketball. They're not going to be able to tell you about basketball. They're going to be able to tell you about my character Naruto running at the park, you know what I'm saying, with the 6'9" colored dreads or the braids, whatever other, like, clothes I got on. Like, that's all they're going to talk about, because it makes them happy in that instance, but they don't know any different. So at that point now, like, you're still learning from these things. So every form, like I said, video games are going to be art, $136 billion industry. Yeah, like, this is the biggest entertainment medium. So if you're gonna be representing like characters in the game, like, you have a responsibility, point blank, period, of any race, but specifically mine, because that's who I relate to.
Right.
You have a responsibility to represent us in a proper way. So my son and then my grandchildren and everybody else that comes after, and all of the young black boys and girls out there now feel comfortable with it.